Hello, welcome to the Cunning Plan podcast. I'm here today with David from MMU. He's here today to talk to us all about graduates. A bit about yourself. So, David, you work at MMU. What's the name of the course that you?
I'm the principal lecturer in digital marketing at Manchester Met, and I've set up a number of programs around digital marketing. I've been there since 2004. I was only supposed to be there for 2 years. But I've never gone because I've been involved in a whole series of really interesting programs. So I set up the UK's first MSc in digital marketing in 2007. I've run units around the themes of digital comms and digital marketing since 2006, which were the reasons why I landed there. And I taught a version of that unit every year since. And the first year I ran that undergraduate unit, there was 30 students on it. This year there are 147.
Wow.
So it's there's a real steep curve in the people who are taking that unit. So everything I do is about preparing students for practice and work in the digital comms sector.
We've read a number of articles about, these are some of the kind of stats that we were hearing. 23% of employers say that grads are not ready for work. 53% say there's too much book learning in university. 40% they lack any sort of social skills. A pretty, from businesses, a pretty harsh indictment of the type of grads that universities are putting out. And again, it's sort of, some of these stats, that this was from, that was from All About Careers. Again, some CBI and Pearson research kind of broke down the different sectors and kind of how different sectors output students, I suppose, better than others and things like that.
Yeah.
What do you think is the cause of that kind of, that general feeling? Because obviously we're grouping all employers together in that statement, but what do you think is causing that?
Well, we're grouping all employers, but also grouping all graduates. And I think that not everyone goes to university to get a job. And that's going to come as a bit of a shock to some people. That there are, and I'm quite happy for people to go to university and study something that isn't about getting a job. Other people will disagree about that. I work in a university which has a history of preparing people for work. It was Polytechnic at one time. Before that, there are a whole series of institutes, we can look back as far as 1824 to see what we were doing, and it was about preparing the people of Manchester for work. So you've got the Mechanics Institute, you've got various institutes of commerce, you've got the oldest purpose-built school of art, and that was about creating graphic designers. Those roles they were all about real work and the skills that were required for those. And that work's carried on. I work in a business school. I work in a department that's around marketing, retail and tourism. They're all vocational roles. And people come on those courses because they are interested in careers in those areas. And we provide them with a rounded education. And it is education, not training. And I think that's one of the first areas to look at, where I prepare students so that they can arrive in work, but I'm also preparing them to be able to work for the rest of their lives. And the students pay me, so I don't get money from anyone else. So the agenda thing is quite interesting. I got a lot of employers saying to me, none of the graduates are work ready. And I said, well, what have you paid? And historically, we paid a lot of money in our taxes that we're not trying to pay for universities. Now, students bear the debt, and that's changed a lot of the way that students think about coming to university. It hasn't stopped them coming. In fact, I thought there'd be fewer students this year. There are more. We're actually in a bit of a dip demographically at the moment. We should have had fewer, we've got more, so more people are coming to university. People can see the value of getting skilled up for this next big economic wave that we're going to be involved in, which is less about manual labour and much more about our intellectual labour. So it is a mixed bag, because you've got different kinds of students coming out of university. But I'm very confident that the work I do is directed to making people employable, to making them desirable, and that all of the programs we put in place are set up to do that. And I think a lot of institutions are like that, but I think there are going to be courses and students who aren't, because of the nature of what they've studied. I'm not sure. I'm probably going to speak out of turn here because I don't know anyone who does that, but I don't know what kind of employability someone thinks about when they go and do a course on English literature. And it's not to deny it's a valuable thing. If somebody wants to go and do English literature, that's for them.
Yeah.
But
I'm not sure how much Joe, who works here, uses archaeology degree,
Yeah.
for example. I don't think he uses that a lot on a day-to-day basis.
But I don't think that. I think one of the things that employers say to me is they can't do, and it's insert name of really difficult, very operational, new this year task. But I can train them to think, and I can train them to pick up new skills fairly quickly. I also am giving them things that they can use from day one. So I try and get these two things balanced. It doesn't always work. Not everyone's receptive to that as a learner. And, you know, I am doing something which I think is consistent, and I'm confident that it works quite a lot of the time. But I'm working with some raw materials, and I don't always have control over the origins of those raw materials, or ultimately what they'll turn into.
So what do you think that universities as a whole need to do more of, the things that, the kind of things that you're doing, the techniques you're using to make people employable? And it's not, we talked about the course that they're doing, and I think that does, the course you chose to do does speak a little bit to, I went and did a law degree because you were supposed to go and do a degree, and that was kind of, I didn't necessarily want to be a lawyer, but you were just sort of had to go and do a degree, so that was something I was interested in, so I did it. And now it's very different. Now you really kind of, you go and do a degree because you want to do that job in theory, but it's not just about the subject you're studying. It's about the attitude, the social skills, the ability to go into a workplace and communicate with people, and and things like that.
And you'll find, I mean, one of the things we do is, you're forcing people into rooms with each other, and that's to start with. We do a lot of group work. Students hate group work.
Hated group work.
Because there is, they feel they're going to be carrying a fifth wheel. Yep. And yet, in the real world, you're going to have to work with people, and some of those people are going to be less than helpful. Is the best way. But in the real world, the problems are different, because you're being paid, whereas in a university environment you are paying, and you're trying to get your degree, and the tension there is around the fact that the group work could be a problem in the achievement of that, and I can see that. So we're moving to a situation where if you are going to have group work, it's the group work itself that's being assessed. It's the ability to work in a team that will be assessed. So we'll be moving to more of those kind of, you're only going to work in a group when we want to assess your ability to work in a group.
Okay.
So around teamwork, around the ability to work as a team on a problem. And we've got units in our second year where students solely focus on, say, a client brief, and it's about looking at how they perform. In our postgrad, we have a thing called a live client brief, and again, we look at how they perform collectively and respond to a problem, and can they see their own roles within that. So those skills are not, you can't say they are not being delivered, but ultimately it's up to a graduate to go out and be able to demonstrate that they have those skills, or choose to demonstrate. But certainly from my perspective, that's what we do. And I think when I go and visit all the universities and I see people and what they do, that's definitely happening. But I'm can't be sure that it's happening everywhere.
No.
And I'm pretty sure it's not happening everywhere because we're still seeing the outputs of that.
Yeah, I think we wouldn't be getting results like this, these surveys if it wasn't for the fact that they're. But I think there's also, potentially an unrealistic expectation from employers as well.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked in the past about the adverts I've seen where it says graduate with experience required. And, somebody who's 20 or 21, the opportunities for experience are limited. So we have programs where we've got year-long placements where people can go out and learn those skills and get those experiences. But experience can only be provided by employers. I can't provide experience. My biggest bug is that I cannot teach SEO. You have to go and do it.
Yeah.
And I can give some limited experiences of it, but the place to do SEO is in the workplace. And so we really encourage students to go on placements so that they get those experiences, and then great placement students come back and they've got a different view in their final year about they know what they're doing, they know where they're heading, they're very focused, and so that's great, and then that student will have that experience. So if it's my job to provide graduates who are experienced, it's employers' jobs to provide that experience.
To give the experience, yeah. How do you find that the difference between a student that's gone and they've done that placement year versus a student who hasn't done that placement year? And also, do you ever find any challenges with that in someone who's been into a business, they've done the job for a little while? Do you ever find that rubs up against kind of some of the learning that they've had or that they're about to receive in their final year? The practicalities and the commercialities kind of... I
think it's counterintuitive because one of the things I'm doing is I'm creating these things called critical thinkers. We know Elon Musk only employs critical thinkers. So he, that business recognises the need for someone to be a trained thinker. I want someone, when they come back from placement, I expect to be challenged because some of the things that I'm putting out to them, practices, ideas about how things work, I want them to say, well, that's not how it works at X. And I say, well, how does it work there? Why is it different to the perceived wisdom or the stuff that everyone else says they're doing? Why do you do it differently? And I don't find a problem. What I find is people realise now what they're learning in their final year. They know why. They go, now I get it. That's that, and it gives them this focus and an understanding, and they bring those experiences into their work that they're doing with me. They can provide examples. They can create this critical thinking thing. They can create the argument saying, well, it works there, but it doesn't work here. So I never have a problem in that sense. What I've got is a more focused thinker who's got experiences that they can draw on when they are producing their work. And the work that I provide them with, I don't get them to write essays. They are predominantly producing proposals, reports, schemas, diagrams, campaigns. They are doing practitioner work. I'm asking them to, as an example with my postgrads, I ask them to optimize a page. But they need to know why they're doing it, and the why is what I'm often providing, and also they need to tell me the reasons why they've optimized a page in a certain way. So on my organic and paid stuff, they will probably spend 100 hours optimizing one page, which you're never going to do in the real world.
No.
But actually, they're doing more than just doing that one page. They are thinking of the fundamental principles behind SEO and what they need to think of in that specific context.
Yeah. And what they're also doing with that is what you do, when you optimise a site over a period of time is you reach a point where you've done everything that you can do. Yeah. So then what are you going to do next to take it further? So if you've only got that one page to focus on, once you've done, 10 hours, the fundamentals are pretty well covered at that point. So you've got 90 hours left to figure out what you're going to do. You've got to get pretty creative in that time.
And they do. And the other thing is that I've effectively created a laboratory for them, and they're working on things that it doesn't matter if it doesn't work because this is the lab. So they might spend a long time looking at that one page and then putting forward those suggestions to their client, who may or may not take on board what they've said. But what I've found is students have optimised pages as a team, And that client said, I really like the difference you've made here because we didn't think about that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that my students do is they rethink target audiences in many cases. If you want to get some more traffic to your site, get some students to think about the audiences because they think they haven't got our baggage.
Yeah.
They haven't got we can't do it that way.
Point with that,
really? Why not? They're just
going
to go, why not? Why don't you do it that way? When was the last time you tried? Or you've never done this, have you? And you know. So give it a go. And so they rethink things in that sense. And I've had graduates, postgrads who've gone on to then maybe do their dissertation. Again, in our place, dissertations are not go in the library, read all the books you can find. They are go and find a real problem with a real organisation and fix it. And there are some books you'll need to read to understand how to fix it. So I've just had a student finish a piece of work with a business that focuses on conversions.
Right.
And she's done a magnificent piece of work trying to help them understand how they work with their clients around conversion practice. And she had the space to do it. They've had no time to think about it. She's put forward these ideas and they're going, well, they're great because we'd never have thought of that. We never had the time to think about that. She's had the experience of working in the conversion sector and is, really hot property now. And they all are when they do these practice-driven dissertations. They become accomplished. They become the experts in some cases in the field.
Yeah. So what do you say to the some of the things that the quotes I pulled out from some of the stuff I looked at? Almost forget about the work and what they learn and the practical stuff.
Yeah.
We almost get into. We all talk about millennials, and we were talking earlier that we're sort of done with millennials now, and we're on to was it Generation
Z?
Z now. These people. Yeah. So your students were born in.
So the students who joined us this September were born in 2000.
That's
bonkers. So they've got no memory of 9/11 at all. They don't have a view of a world that we're quite familiar with. They are in a world that's been digital has been there always. And they are very comfortable with those environments. They are quite canny. My problem with those terms, Gen Z, millennials, and all that, is that it's the worst form of segmentation ever.
It's a real broad. It is a real broad brush, and we've all been guilty of administering that broad brush.
Absolutely. But one thing that does certainly unite them is that the digital world isn't an alien place. It's not like Mars. It's just normal stuff.
Yeah.
And there's an expectation that they will operate in that environment, and they are very, very comfortable operating as digital naturals. I don't like the word natives.
Digital native that's one of those phrases that you hear a lot. But
I'm a digital native, and I'm 50.
Yeah. It was. I don't remember. I don't remember a time when I didn't have, there was a time, like I had a job at some point briefly where we were faxing things, but it was brief. We still had email at the time and stuff like that. So, it's a funny thing that. So some of the phrases people use, that they talk about people not being able to communicate because this nature of digital being prevalent all the time. So they only know how to text. They don't like talking to people in the real world. They won't pick up the phone. Those kind of challenges there. Entitled is a word you hear an enormous amount when it comes to people who are, and I think there's a bit of the fact that a lot of as you just said, your students have paid quite a lot of money to get through your course, and at the end of that, you can understand why they might walk into a workplace and say, I just spent 3-4 years paying to learn a lot of stuff. I'm sort of owed.
I think the entitled thing keeps coming up, and I struggle to see that with the people I work with. I work with a lot of students. We've spent a lot of time bringing people into university where they are the first person in their family, the first gen, they're called, and I don't recognise that sense of entitlement. I recognise people who are really keen to get into work, are keen to push themselves forward, and I see a lot of those students. Those students work very hard. They work part-time while they're studying. And when I went to university, I didn't have to work part-time. I chose to, but I didn't have to. These students have to support themselves.
Yeah.
You know, when you're paying £120 a week rent,
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
and you're already borrowing £9,500 a year just for the fees, never mind the living expenses.
Yeah.
You know how expensive it is to live.
Yeah.
There is a. I don't see a sense of entitlement. What I see is a need to make this work and for it to pay off, because it's a huge gamble that just as in fees alone could range between £27,000 to £36,000 in fees.
How often else in your life, even later on in your life, do you think I'm going to invest £30,000 in something and hopefully it'll work out?
Yeah,
let alone when you're 19 years old.
It's house, car, and in between now is student debt, and that's going to create a certain tension. But I don't recognise entitlement. What I recognise is quick to work out what's important and what is not. And I think that it's very easy to live in the past and make decisions around recruitment of employees around what's gone on in the past. The kind of universities you go to for employees, the kind of graduates that come out, the kind of employee that you want. You know, from a learning and development point of view, from a HR point of view, you've got to just, think differently. Are you still trying to get the same people you were buying 30 years ago? And the madness is many of the employers I speak to now are millennials.
Yeah.
And they are these people we're complaining about. And I don't recognise those ideas about, entitlement. What I do recognise is that we've moved away from this traditional employer-employee relationship, like a supplier-client relationship. Yeah. And actually, there has to be a change in the way you view a graduate as an employer. They're almost like consumers, because we need way more people than we're providing. I know that there's an absolute shortage of digitally competent communicators, and we can't afford to keep these very old attitudes, which is going to really wind some people up. But I always have people come join me. They say, "Send me your best graduates," and I go, "Are you the best company?"
Yeah,
because my grads think maybe Google's the best company, and I don't think you're Google, but you're probably good enough for them to work for, and they are good enough for you. And it's this, you've got to get into the good enough thing rather than the best thing. Everyone wants the best graduates, and they're in short supply, but everyone is good enough. But it's about, I think that that people have to move away from some of the things that they think they're after, but also start to look a bit wider than the pool that they've been looking in.
Yeah. It sounds to me like also fishing in the right pool as well. Understanding, it's saying I want a graduate. You really, saying I want a graduate from this course because I know this. I know this course. I know who's teaching it. I know what they're teaching. I understand that, rather than just going, "Oh, graduates are all a bunch of lazy, entitled so-and-sos." Figure out what it is they're learning whilst they're doing it, and then choose, and be the best possible place for them to work at.
I think hunting for talent is harder than it was 10 years ago, harder than it was 20 years ago. You've got to go out and get it. It will not just rock up. If you build a job, they will not fill it.
Yeah.
That you have got to go out and pull these people in, and it's a long supply chain. And one of the things I say is, if you're an employer, what relationship do you have with the supply chain in the university? So do you get involved in the education of these people? You're however big or small your organisation is, you're a brand. how many people in that university know your brand? Why are you not hammering on the door of the people who deliver the learning for that program and get involved? Are you delivering lectures? Are you delivering workshops? Are you providing coaching? Are you providing mentorship support? Are you offering in any kind of placements? Are you offering projects? Are you on the advisory board for the curriculum? Are you offering prizes? Are you sponsoring students? When I went to uni, quite a few students had sponsorships. They don't exist now. Very few people get sponsored.
Yeah.
And you've got to think, well, if you're out there and you're seen to be advocating people's futures inside the university, I know right now you'll stand out because you're one of the few people doing it.
Yeah. That's the reason. You want people to people to come in and be good at what you want them to do. So be a part of what they learn.
Absolutely.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
And some firms have got this nailed, and what they've realised is they have to invest in this activity, and it's a risk. It takes people out of the business, it takes people time, but you can't just leave it to fate. You've got to get in early and get to the top of these. This is classic marketing. Get the mind share of these people. Get ambassadors. When people are interested in you, you want them throwing their CVs at you.
Exactly.
And they will, because you might be one of the few people who's gone in and taken an interest. And students will always take note of somebody who's taken interest in them throughout their career, who's done something for them, has been very, very visible. And it's quite interesting looking at who's very visible at our university, and the big and small. Big organisations can do it, but actually I don't think that's as helpful as a small organisation, for example, where you go in and literally deliver perhaps an aspect of the curriculum. Train people to do something that you would like them to be able to do if they joined your organisation. And those are, lecturers find those things really useful because they bring the real world into the curriculum and demonstrate the relevance of everything else that's going on in there. So
from your point of view, let's assume that you're a business, you've employed a graduate, you've got people here, and maybe you're one of these businesses saying, this person is not, isn't delivering, they're not performing, they're not. What does a business need to do to create the environment that ultimately, and I appreciate it, not every graduate is going to succeed everywhere. With broad brush approach to this whole process, but what do businesses need to do to help graduates to succeed?
I think obviously be involved early, and I work with firms who say we want to get involved in the first year, so that by the time they literally leave the university, they know about us and maybe they've had time with us. That's not going to be the case for everyone, so some people are going to arrive, having never experienced that organisation before. I think you have to think that what you've got is quite raw talent, and you will have to train up people in the way of doing things too. I always remember that there was always a big commotion about students leaving university and not knowing how to use Photoshop. Have you seen how expensive Photoshop is? If we got every student a license for that, we wouldn't be able to afford to teach them. But actually, Photoshop is an operational tool which evolves regularly. But what if you're an organisation that doesn't use Photoshop? If somebody learned how to use Photoshop, there's no point for an organisation that doesn't use it, and plenty of organisations from a graphic design point choose not to. What we'll give them is principles that allow them to drop into any of those tools within, a small amount of training, and then be able to use it. There's no point in me training someone how to use Photoshop, but then giving them no graphic design stuff behind it.
Yeah. Well, it's no good being able to use. It's just a piece of software. It's no good if you don't know what you want to do with it.
Yeah.
Then if you're not creative enough, or you don't have some sort of idea of the mechanic of what you want to achieve.
Yeah,
it's pointless.
And universities aren't for training; they're for education. Training is a day, and education is over a period of time in which a person grows intellectually. And it's that growth that you should be recruiting for: the ability to think critically, the ability to know how to make decisions, the ability to be able to pick up skills quickly in technical things. But if you just want somebody like who's an AdWords trained professional, go and get someone off an AdWords course. But what you're going to get from me is somebody who can pick up AdWords quickly, and they know why, and they know why not, and I think that I hide underneath the digital marketing veneer critical thinking, and I don't mention it very often, but you want people who are discriminating, who are creative, who are able to see past the sort of shiny and get into the crux of a problem and come up with solutions and know where they came from. And now we have this whole idea that we can do this with a digital marketing framework for my students. So they come out with those two sets. I'm a digital marketer who can think, as opposed to I'm just somebody who does AdWords.
Yeah, and that's all. What more do what more do we want as an agency? What more do our clients want? That's what they want from us. Is for us to challenge, is for us to question, is for us to think about the problem and provide them with a solution. And that's
So I think the environments that people need to create are ones where you're picking someone who's trained to think and is critical and has some skills. So have a pathway into your organisation that allows them to get up to speed with the day job, if they aren't already doing it and have arrived with you. You can't just drop people, whether they've had 50 years experience or 5 minutes experience, into something in an organisation and expect them to be immediately valuable. So you've got to really think about what value do you want this person to create within a month, 6 months and a year. And people learn very fast, and I think you've got to accept that training has to happen. I do believe, and I'm sure I'm going to get shot down in flames for this, there are organisations that do not invest in their staff, and we know we've seen them, and they're talked about on environments like Glassdoor and on the various social media platforms. So there may be a reason why you're not getting the right people, because people have heard about you, and then that's affecting the kind of people who are applying. If you've never been on Glassdoor, it's an eye-opener, and I would check your own organisation out. And it's effectively people are reviewing you, rating your organisation for its ability to employ people. The table's turned.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've got to create that environment for new recruits to arrive in that is focused on getting the most. You have to invest in them to get the most out of them, but you're not investing in an empty vessel. You have got something that has the capability to move into that quite quickly. But use your recruitment process. I am disturbed by some recruitment processes in that if you aren't recruiting wisely, if you aren't doing a proper recruitment process, that there's a reason why you're not getting the right people. Write job ads correctly, be very clear about what you want, look for things like the organisational fit, the cultural fit, look at how realistic are you about what you want someone to achieve on day one. Like I say, that the graduate with experience thing. If someone's got experience, they know exactly where they can go with that.
Yeah. And
it might not be your organisation.
Yeah, I think you do. You have to be realistic about that, the size that you are and what you have to offer, and you can't just, we're the greatest things in sliced bread, so therefore everyone should want to come here. You have to be realistic in your approach.
And they are discerning, those graduates. They're very discerning in who they'll work for, and some organisations are feeling the brunt of that. There are some qualities of millennials. They are concerned about the environment. I'm concerned about the environment, but they are making decisions about who they'll work for, and to some extent that interview, they might be interviewing you.
I think anybody that goes into any sort of interview without that attitude is pretty foolish. You've got to assume that as an interviewer, I'm assuming that every person that walks in the door is going to be the best possible person, and I want them to think that we're a great place to work. And I think anybody that goes in with that sort of bullish attitude of apprentice style interviews is not, is potentially going to scare off someone that could be your best possible employee.
But if you want that experience, you have to provide it. There's a social contract here, is if you cannot demand graduates with experience if you're not providing those experiences. I'm going to say something really controversial. You can't have internships that are unpaid. Now, I hear quite a lot, well, I did one when I was at uni, and I said, that's fine, but you went to a certain university, you came from a certain background, it was possible for you to do that.
Just literally our last podcast, we met Simon, who's just joined us. He went to MMU. He was part of 5 people, I think, that got to the final stage for an unpaid internship at TBWA, I think it was.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of competition for a job that doesn't pay any money.
Yeah, and ironically, the research around unpaid internships is not helpful, because you're less likely to get a job as a result of having an unpaid internship than if you simply did nothing at all.
Really? And why do you think that is?
Well, there is a view perhaps that maybe you don't value yourself. That actually there's a view that maybe there are people who can't afford to take unpaid internships, and actually they are quite talented, so they look for other routes to do that. I don't think that anyone who has ever worked at McDonald's has no ability to deal with customers. I think it's a great training ground. That Friday night in McDonald's, you learn to deal with a lot of situations, handle people, deal with things, and it's give experiences. If you, for example, offer a paid internship, you're going to open up an opportunity to somebody who isn't in a financial position to work for nothing. So you're opening the talent pool up. So I work with a lot of students who've come from tough backgrounds, tough parts of Manchester. They might be the first person to go to university in their street, in their family. They're not in a position to not work. So if you can say, well, you're studying in that subject naturally leads to our industry, we'd like you to work 1 or 2 days a week for money in our industry, so you get those skills that we are asking for in our job adverts. It's an investment, it's a risk, but it's not a considerable risk. I used to joke that there were companies who spent more on the flowers in their reception than they did on a day's wage for an internship.
It's crazy, yeah.
And that, stick your intern in the reception and say, look, that's where our money's going,
there,
not in flowers, but in actual humans.
I think there's also an expectation as well, like from a business, that if I've got an intern that is here and I'm not paying for them, so if they're doing a good job or they're not doing a good job, how much do I really care about that? I don't know, because ultimately they're not paying for them, so if they do a little bit, then it's all right. Whereas as soon as you're paying someone,
there's a different
you're
contract.
Them. Yeah, it's a different. Yeah, they're getting paid, so they feel a sense that they actually do need to do something because they're getting paid for it, and likewise, you drive them because you're paying them some money.
And I think it's really valuable. You're widening the kind of talent pool that you can look at. They're good road tests. You can see what someone's like from a personal perspective. And actually, if you're paying somebody for a day's work, you might take the investment more seriously and make sure that they get the kind of development they need to be able to at least give you something back.
One last question then before we go. Probably better than anyone how to relate to a lot of the younger people that are coming through universities. How should businesses motivate those people? The ones that again say here they're this phrase of entitled, they're kind of lethargic, they're not energized and whatever else. What do people what do employers need to be doing and giving these people to get them G'd up and focused on success?
Rip out the ball pit, get rid of that fridge full of beers, because actually they're interesting, but that's not what interesting. What people are interested in is money, and it's important.
Yep, we're getting around it.
What training and development will I get while I'm here? What interesting things will I be working on? What are the people like? Have you got interesting people to work with? But have clear routes around succession planning, if I'm here for a certain period of time, what can I expect in terms of promotion? What's your pension plan? People are asking that question. That's more important than ball pits. Work that people enjoy, that they are proud of and can be proud of. Those are really important things that employers need to look at.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, David. I really appreciate you coming in today. I hope you found that interesting. Like as David says, get in touch with your local university. If you're an agency or you're a business and you want to get better graduates, you want to be improve these statistics. It sounds like the simple thing to do is work closely with the university, be part of the process instead of someone that complains about the end result of it.
Talk to us about offering one-day internships through our Agency Life programme. That's specifically for students around marketing, retail, advertising, digital. Provide projects for us. We always need them. We have our full-time MSc in Digital Marketing Comms. That's a great programme if you've done a degree and you're one of these people that say you can't do anything. I was one of those people. Once I did a degree, first thing I had to do was go into another one where I actually learned
how to do the job
you're
going to do. Yeah.
So, we've got this Digital Marketing Comms programme, and about half the people on that are from degrees like geography, English, archaeology, and so on. We're just launching a globally learning digital marketing masters for people who are already in work and have been in the business for 5, 10, 15 years and need to move to more of a digital focus around what they do, or they might be a very specialist niche digital player and they need to have a more broader understanding of that role. And that's actually starting next month, but obviously that's going to be a program that rolls and rolls and rolls. But it's all about, we have a massive shortage of entry-level, junior, mid-level and senior digital people. And I'm doing my damnedest to get them out fast enough, but the demand increases faster than the speed of production. So those people are really hot property, and they are literally falling out of the university and into roles with organisations because they recognise the university they've come from. A lot of people know who I am and what I've been doing, and they're going, that's exactly what I've been asking for.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time.